welcome to Today in the Kingdom.
Diaspora understand and meet the needs of the young people? Yes or no, and why not?
Okay, so I don't think I have the depth to really speak too much on that because I've been in America for the most of my life. I've been here since I was 8, so I can't really speak to that. But what I can speak to is since the introduction of social media, right? It has kind of expanded us, to kind of see what other parts of the world is facing, specifically what we're facing in our country. And I think because culturally there are some cultural differences, and then how we even approach Christianity as a westernized society versus other third world countries, it's very different. So I think that oftentimes we miss the point of meeting the need of the youth, across the diaspora, because oftentimes we want to just shut them down and not really listen to what their griefs may be or what their qualms may be about a lot of what they're facing. So I guess long story short, no. And it's because I think that there's a disconnect between the generation and the gaps, and we're not filling it in. So there's that. Oh wait, okay. So I guess some of the challenges I believe that we're facing as a youth, especially from late 20s to early 30s to mid 30s, up into early 40s. Those of us who have just now graduated, we're working. We are called by Christ to be a royal ambassador. We're also called to give our bodies. It's in Romans chapter 12, verse 1 to 3. We're called to give our bodies as a living sacrifice. So we're supposed to literally be presenting ourselves as holy, as pure, and we're also supposed to be actually she said, do not forsake the gathering of brethren, right? So we're called to actually meet every day, but then the devil or our jobs are there that sometimes stops us from gathering together. And I think there's not that much understanding to how can we live a life where we know that we're going to be able to survive versus and still be able to come to church and commit ourselves and give ourselves to Christ and still be able to sustain, the sustainability of our life and still going to work and still doing that. It's been much of a challenge in terms of career and navigating through that. So, yeah.
To piggyback off her, I feel like, I don't want to be a target, but I feel like as a church, we're a little bit closed-minded onto the youth and, the new changes. There's a lot going on in the world, and especially for people like me, who just went to college, you're going into a whole new environment, and I feel sometimes we come back and they'll see something of us on social media and they'll be like, oh, yeah, but we need to really think about spiritual warfare and stuff like that. Some of those things and those challenges that we face, it might not even really be based on our will. If there's something presented in front of us, how are we supposed to deal with that as well? I feel like this church kind of does a good job at meeting my needs personally. I like the teachings. They're very, they actually speak to you. They're not just, random teachings. Yeah, that's all I gotta say.
And she briefly, to piggyback off of her, because I think this is something that we're heading towards in society, right? And this church does a good job. In the beginning, when Suffolk Palm did come, he used to really preach about this. Lately, as time is going by, I don't think we're doing a lot more conviction on this. But this whole LGBT community, and I think I heard her having a conversation, a side conversation about okay, what if an LGBTQ individual come into the church
looking for Christ.
They're looking for Christ, and then they want to now give their lives over to. Is there a way do we deny them access when Christ told us the world, right? But I guess it comes down to what is it written in the Bible about them, right? And then now we have to work with them, and it's they're pushing. That's one of the biggest challenges facing the youth, because we're the generation that now is being forced on us, right? They're pushing it on us to kind of accept like this like lascivious culture and like to accept like this really like sexual and moral culture, and that includes like the LGBTQIA plus community, right? And because the alphabet community, right? That includes accepting them, and then even if you work in a career where sometimes like you have your Christianity principles and pushing it on you still. So I think that's a big challenge that we have to face through. Like we have to really draw the line. Like what side are you on? Are you going to be on the side of Christ and accept all the principles? Or are you going to be somewhere in the middle? And then if you're in the middle, he said you're lukewarm and he'll spit you out. So we do have to kind of address those type of issues.
But I gotta follow up.
Put the fear back in the youth that,
I gotta follow up to that. Do you think that challenge is just unique to youth, or it's just a challenge that all Christians are facing no matter the age?
So I literally said I feel like it's a challenge that all of us are facing, but specifically this generation, we're the ones that are going to be raising the generation that's going to come, that's really going to deal with the latter end of everything that's happening, right? So like literally, like I feel like yes, we're facing like the beginning phases of it, but then the brunt end of it we don't even know, right? Because now it's becoming super I remember it was not like this when I was like, but then now I'm just like, wait, what's happening? Like it was just not like this, like, and the world is just becoming so acceptable onto this. It's becoming this one utopia thing, and that's not the world that Christ said he's coming for. He said he's coming with a sword, right? So we have to be very, very like, assured, and we have to understand what side do we stand on.
Do you feel like the churches of Christ and the diaspora understand and meet the needs of young people? You're a younger guy in the church.
Right.
So I want you to talk about that.
I think broadly I would say no to that. And I think, the reason for that is, unfortunately, I think we have great leaders of the church, but they're coming from a background that is in many ways different from the context in which we live right now. And especially as people who are pursuing careers, higher education, as we are blessed to have in this church, I think that, and also being raised in the U.S., we have a particular context, we have a particular moral compass, we have different pressures in this society that the church leadership isn't necessarily aware of. And for example, in Ghanaian society, the concept of suffering is assumed. We assume that people suffer. When I talk to people in America, that is not an assumption. People live happy lives. And so when you come to church and, you're talking to people and you're like, it doesn't resonate with them in the same way that it resonates with Ghanaians. Because Ghanaians assume that suffering is a part of life. They don't. They question, why is there suffering? And I think that the leadership do the best that they can, but from their context and their background as Ghanaians, and sometimes because of that, they fall short of actually getting to the root. Why is there suffering? What does the Bible have to say about suffering? And I think that is one of many things that is challenging. For example, another example is that in this society, people talk about evidence. People want evidence. We come to church and people will say, you have to have the faith. Okay, I have faith, but I still want the evidence. What does the Bible say about evidence and faith? And I think sometimes we don't try to get to the root of those matters. So I think, long story short, I would say broadly, no. We speak to people who come into this church with particular assumptions. And if you don't have those assumptions, the church doesn't meet your needs in that way.
Asofo, Richard, how can the church in the diaspora make their plans to meet the needs of the youth in the diaspora?
Generation keeps changing. And for you to solve the problems of the young ones, as Christians, there are some things today's leadership must understand. First of all, what is the purpose of the Ghanaian congregation? in diaspora? Why did we establish maybe a Ghanaian congregation? What was the purpose? What is our aim? What do we want to achieve? And we know that the church comprises of the young ones and it comprises of an elderly people. Okay, so if we are forming a Ghanaian congregation in diaspora, what are the problems that the young ones are facing here? So back to your question, for us to solve those problems as a congregation, first of all, we should know the problems of the young ones. But this is where some leaders are not dynamic. They don't socialize with the youth for them to understand them and know the environment at which they are bringing them up. Sometimes our parents or the church think that it is the same like Ghana, but they should see that they are in a different environment. So one of the things the church can do, let me start from there. One of the things the church can do is, first of all, to get qualified leaders who are dynamic in all aspects of life. If we get leaders that look at only one side of the story, they can never use the diaspora congregation to help the young ones to achieve what the church is for. Second thing I will add to it is we need sound teaching. We need sound teaching because we are in a world of knowledge and everything must be proven. Based on what my friend said, everything must be proven with evidence. So what kind of teaching do we do? And the teaching should be also taught to solve problems. So if we teach in the church without solving the problems of the youth, so the topics we will select. So sometimes when we are given an appointment, we should not just give an appointment and any topic. But first of all, there should be an option, maybe in a month, in a year, there should be some weeks that must be dedicated to the youth. And lessons that will be taught must be in line to solve the problems of the youth. But do we do that? Sometimes we do not. And that is what I would suggest for the meantime. I would suggest these two things. We need dynamic leaders who understand the youth in the environment they are, and we need sound teaching to solve the problems the young ones are facing.
Okay, thank you. Also for Kwarteng, do you want to add a little bit to that?
Yeah, let me add this thing. It is very crucial that since we are, the issue is very crucial because looking at the environment in which we live right now, we are having cultural crisis, right? Sometimes it's difficult for us to see whether we are identifying ourselves with this culture or identify ourselves with this culture. So it is not easy for the youth to even identify himself based on culture. So when the youth comes to church and then they are in the church, they are supposed to at least be given one identification, right? Where the preacher or the teacher or whoever is in position, having that opportunity to lead the church, should be able to select topics and ideas based on where the youth have identified themselves in terms of culture. And one thing is that every topic that is selected in the church and then being taught to the youth should be one that resonates with what the youth, not what they want, but what resonates with what they believe in, right? If they don't believe in what you are telling them, hardly would they even listen to you. Because they don't believe in what you're telling them. Now, whatever you are teaching in a manner that is giving them thought of what? Of the 1950s. Meanwhile, they are in the 2000 era, right? So how do they resonate with you? They cannot work with you. So in this manner, what I think the church should do is that they should be able to identify themselves with the youth, reason with them, identify them as part of the church, their brothers and sisters, and then select topics that resonate with what they believe in. Sometimes you might think that, these topics or these things will not be able to solve, but it can help in a manner in which how you present it, and then how you allow them to also appreciate it from their point of view. So that is what I think should be done in the church.
Thank you. Daniel, this is to you. Based on what they said, right? Mm-hmm. Do you think the leadership of the church need constant education, need constant what's the word that I'm looking for? Like improvement on what they know? Because most of the times, some of the leaders that we have, they've been preaching for years, right? They've been preaching and they're used to a certain kind of culture. There's a certain kind of system. What, from you being a youth yourself and also being somebody who's like going to Bible school, what do you think we need as leaders of the church in terms of education and upgrading our skill set?
Well, I think it all boils down to what they just said. Having constant meetings or constant seminars that will help them, be abreast with what is going on in society right now. Will be able to help them at least to channel their education or channel how they teach the congregation as to what the world is facing right now. So yes, of course, they need education. It's quite obvious that sometimes some of the preachers, maybe hardly do we see them, participating in these kind of seminars, or even within the churches of Christ. There are other preachers who I know in America that they have platforms, or they have, I know for when you go to Texas or Tennessee, they have the GBN. They have all those platforms where you can meet other preachers, where they can collaborate, and certain things that can help you channel a way to teach your congregation to follow you as to what you want them to learn from you. Because a lot of Ghanaian congregations that I know in America are filled with people that come from Ghana, and most of them are about maybe 45 years. But the youth that are coming, we see them as our mentor, but it gets to a point that it becomes difficult for you to follow, because it doesn't fit the society or it doesn't fit the world that you live in or what you see day in and day out. So I think that these seminars will help them, and also for them to broaden their horizon as to what the society is going on right now. Because we can teach ourselves, or we can teach the congregation for them to live in the past. But what is going on in the society? What are some of the challenges? What are some of the issues that the world is facing right now that we see ourselves in the middle of it? So yes, seminars, educating ourselves, also even not only to the Bible. Sometimes there are topics or there are discussions that is going on in the society that we can dive deep into it, study hard into finances or into, stories that happen in society. So I believe that these seminars will help them educate themselves so that they don't get stuck in the 1950s or in the 1940s, where they used to teach them about all these things. All right. So that's the piece of it that I can chip in.
My next question goes to Isaac. One of the challenges that I've seen our youth struggling with is the pressures that they find outside of the church and what they see other churches doing. We know sometimes we are the Church of Christ. We are the one true church, right?
Sure.
And the fact that we believe that we are self-sufficient, right? We struggle to learn from the other denominations. As a church leader yourself, what do you think are some of the things that we can learn from other churches without compromising the doctrine of Christ?
All right, bro. Thank you, man. So I think that I want to be here as leader, right, of the church. So I want to do more of listening and take notes and give everything
Back to the leadership.
back to them. So what I want to say is that, no matter what the problem is, as Christians and as the Church of Christ, we have only one way of solving it. If I say one way, is we only have the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever issue that we have to go back to the Bible. Whatever the Bible says, that is what we implement. So I know that we have so many churches around. So many, even for me, I don't even call them churches. So many groups around claiming that they are churches. They want people to come and they are enticing them with a whole lot of entertainment and, worldly adventures. you know. So it become hard for the Church of Christ to really, I mean, put Christian life into the youth, you know, because these people, we go to school with them, we see them outside, we go to parties, you know, those are the people we talk to, those are our friends and stuff. So if they tell you this is what we do at church, sometimes you don't understand why when you come to the Church of Christ, it's different. We don't dance here, we don't normally do the stuff they do here. But these are the things that entice the youth the most. So it becomes harder. But as everybody here is saying, what we can do is to continue to give them the word of God. You know, as they all say that if we notice a problem, we have to go back to the Bible, or we don't even have to wait. Things that we don't normally do. It's like every year, Youth Week, we all come together, we do our things, and then everyone goes. But the church have to take it upon itself that this is what we want to do for the youth. Sometimes we do it here. I think that all Ghanaian congregations, we have to do it and make sure that we are meeting the needs of the youth through the Bible. That is the only way.
Okay. So for Richard, I want to come back to you. Oh, do you have something to say, Kinsley? Okay. I want to come back to you as well. To the same question, right?
Okay.
How can the church, with all the enticement that Brother Isaac is talking about, they get, for lack of a better word, seduced into these denominational churches, how can we, this church, also do things like them without compromising on the true doctrine of the church?
Yeah. I keep saying that even when you take a Satan, there is a lesson you can learn from a Satan.
You're sure.
Very good.
I used to say that because there are some things that Satan do that we can learn something from it. That does not mean that I'm compromising or I'm just supporting what Satan does, but there's some good things. Let me give one example. Satan is persistent.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to win you, he will keep coming. Okay, so the denominations, they are in our society, they are in our culture. Let me maybe use one example. Maybe there are some denominations in Ghana. They have also started a Ghanaian congregation here. Why do they have the youth? Why have they been able to maintain the youth? It's all about research and study.
Right.
And that is the problem we have. That is why I said everything about the church depends on the leadership. So if the leadership fails, everything has failed. So when we look at what you are saying, yes, the leaders should do their background search. Why do this Ghanaian congregation growing in this community? As Church of Christ members, what strategies are they using?
Sure.
But one funny thing is some of our leaders, not even preachers alone, some of our leaders don't want to do research about other denominations and bring that idea and apply the Bible principles. One thing I can also say that apart from that one also, we always learn from many people. So one of the things I want to say on board that if we don't do things right, the young ones will keep leaving the church. Let me give you one example. Back in Ghana, there was a church I studied. And that church, they don't have school, but they have a lot of classrooms. They have built a nice building. And they have divided the building as if it is classroom. So when you come to Sunday worship, your children know his or her class. You know, they have a Sunday school teacher. Your child will go to the class, learn, and when it's about 10 o'clock to 11, then they all come into the building and do worship. They mark register, and they have books over there. So when your child comes, there maybe your 2-year-old or 3-year-old child comes, he has Bible things to play with in the building. It's not sinful. But will our church in Diaspora practice this for our young ones? They will start quoting Bibles. Where can we find this? Where can we find that? But it helps the young ones to grow in the Lord's church. So it's all about studying them and picking. What people will say that pick and choose. There is a good things over there. So I have some, friends who used to say that chew the meat and throw out the bones. There are some meat we can pick from there. So it all about boils down to research work. And if we have leaders who don't do research work, then we will keep declining in terms of the church in diaspora. So the young people have a lot of issues. We need to study how the denominations maintain their young ones and pick some good things from it.
Okay. So for Kwarteng, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, let me add this one. And one thing is that I think I was tempted to name the church when I was doing my second degree in Ghana. I was employed by, or maybe not employed, but I got an advantage to work with one of the denominations in Ghana who were doing their research. And what they were doing was that they were looking at how to maintain the youth, because they see that this digital age, the youth like these digital things and stuff, and then because some of them they come to the church without these Bibles, they come with these digital Bibles, and so what can we do to help these? It all boils down to research, right? Now we are in the church that we don't value scholarly.
Yes.
We don't. And I'm tempted to say that has been the practice, not even only in Ghana, but elsewhere, everywhere in the world. And if you don't do research, if you don't study what is going around us, we will not know what to do around us. We should study, right? And these people, what the church that you made mention of, they employ people, give them the resources. Please do this research for us. Bring us the report. Let us implement it. Right. And I think the Church of Christ in diaspora, since we have the resources,
right.
I think we should be able to tax people to do a lot of research for us.
Yeah.
We can pay them, we have the resources. So we can do that. So if you're able to do that, at least we get a report. And when you go to them, when you are doing your research, you are going to go to these same youth to collect your data, right?
Yeah.
And they will give you the information, they will give you whatever they want. And then you come and sit down as leaders, and then you know how to strategize to meet the needs of these people. Because these youth are not raised in Ghana, they are raised here, and there are a lot of pressures that they are going through. You might say this to them in the church. The moment they leave the building, right? Do you know the number of people they are going to contact?
Oh, yeah.
Those they are there in college with.
Mm-hmm.
So please, what we need to do is that we should be able to do a lot of research, identify what they need, and then tailor our teachings towards whatever they are finding difficult to handle them. And then one thing I want to add is that knowledge is power. Now we should be mindful of whatever information we are giving to the youth, because whatever information they consume, they are made up of whatever they eat. Right? You are made of whatever information you have. So if you give them the right information, it means that they will be able to act in the right manner that you want. So whatever information that we are also giving to the youth in the church should be the one that has a biblical principle that can influence their lives as youth. So please, what I want to end with that is that we should, as a church, leaders of the church, one should be, since we have the resources here in the diaspora, should be subject to research. Then identify the need of these youth. And then the leaders should be willing to implement them. The last thing is that we should not be shameful to use people who are knowledgeable to come and bring some teachings if you don't know it. We should be willing to do that as leaders. And if you have students who are pursuing college degrees and stuff, and then you think that these are the challenges facing them there, and if you don't take care, they will not come back as Christians. You should be able to at least use people who are knowledgeable. Even if you're the preacher, you don't have that kind of knowledge.
Yeah.
You should be able to employ some of your colleagues, friends who are knowledgeable in that aspect. Even if they have the secular knowledge about it, let them apply the biblical principle, help this youth to overcome some of these challenges. Because you cannot do it all now. You can't do it all.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that. That's one thing that this congregation, we do well in allowing some of the younger people to lead. So like, for instance, Kinsley is somebody that, the preacher has allowed to nurture him by allowing him to preach so that the younger ones can also like resonate with him. Obeying Isaac, all of us here have participated in that.
I have something to say pertaining to what the two preachers just said. You see, I think that one problem that we are having as Ghanaian congregations is leadership. I think that we should put people who are qualified over there.
Sure.
It shouldn't be that we need leaders. So we have leaders.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Yeah.
Leadership is work.
Sure.
So if you put somebody there, you assign that person to do ABC.
Yeah.
At the end of the year, if the person is not doing that, if you are not achieving anything, bro, we have to change.
Yeah.
We have a lot of men that can do the work. It's like our jobs. I mean, if you get a job and you go to work and you do whatever you want, there is a day that you will account for whatever you are doing. I think Ghanaians, our when it comes to leadership, it's like, okay, we have the people over there. These are leaders. Mostly, they meet to discuss, I mean, somebody died, somebody giving birth. We don't actually have a day that, for the past 6 months, let's sit down, reminisce about the church.
Yeah.
We set a goal for ourselves for the whole year. For 6 months now, let's sit down, let's look at how teachings went, sermon, maybe our finances and all this. We don't do that.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We don't. So sometimes, how can you identify the problems that the youth have so that you can even solve it? We come to church, leadership, what we do, we all sit down somewhere, whatever is going on, we don't really pay attention to it. So Ghanaian, I think, per what they are saying, we have to look for competent people to lead the church. This is not like friends and family stuff.
We have to, usually what they look for is a mature person, like somebody that's old, right? That's when you are sorry, that is the problem that we have, right? It's like we don't have the whole eldership system. We have a committee system. So because of sending in the crowd, it's not biblically you need to know. You have to make sure you're putting people who are qualified to do it. Yeah. So that doesn't.
Well, let me chip in a little.
We are not for a set as so KBB. Then I have another question for us. I think we don't want audience.
I think that, well, this whole conversation, we've had it before in this podcast, and it quite led to some kind of misunderstanding that it was like maybe some of us were kind of attacking the leadership whatsoever. But here's the thing. Since a lot of churches of Christ don't have the eldership system, so everything starts from the preacher. So since we have two preachers here, the foresight of the preacher is to identify these people that can be placed in these sections of the church where they can supervise and monitor whatever is going on in those sections. So the preacher's foresight is to know all these things. Now, if we don't identify these people and we just pick people which we assume to be, of age that can lead the church, that is the problem that we face. And this has been going on for so long. So now the preachers have to know these things and make sure we try to solve these problems. Like for instance, I don't want to name any congregation. For some of us, when you talk, they assume that you are talking for this church. But generally speaking, it maybe can also have some sort of people under him that will target that particular problem that we are facing and make sure that that problem is resolved. If it comes to children ministry, we have to have a leader in that particular, who is sitting in leadership, who is in charge of children ministry. So if we don't do these things and then we just pick people who just come to church, they sit in front, or sometimes they leave the church, they go somewhere else. Whenever they want, they join the church. It becomes a problem because they're not in between what the challenges that the church is actually facing. For instance, if we have a leader who has been absent for quite some time, and he doesn't even know what's going on for the past couple of months, or for the past couple of, we are handling people to go to heaven. You can just do that in as a board of director of Amazon, or a board of director in whatever. It doesn't work that way. So if we want to be serious, my point is it starts from the preacher. The preacher, since we don't have eldership, because when it comes to elders, we have to make sure we scrutinize people about all sections of these things so that they can fit that position.
Sure.
And a lot of churches of Christ in the white congregations do that. But when it comes to Ghanaian congregations, we face this problem. So we have to identify it. If we don't identify it, the youth will continuously leave the church. Or it comes to the next couple of years, the next couple of decades, a lot of people who will be in this country who would not have the appetite to even come to church. So the preacher must be the forefront of identifying all these people who can do this and who can solve these problems.
So we need to plan, because here it's like the environment and the system here is too, I say, clumsy. And no matter how what I say, so you need to sit down and really plan. Say, this is where the world is going. How are we telling our message towards that? For the youth, for us to sustain the youth. Because when we go to now, friends say, no matter what, no. Or you're come back you. Or back cry say, once a while, then he'll come and pass through, and then he'll go once a while. But if he sees that what I'm coming to get here will be something beneficial, he'll go and then he'll still come. That's what I think we should do as a church.
I would like to bring it back to the original conversation what we were having between the elders
and the youth.
I think sometimes we're looking at it from one point, the elders, what the elders are doing. And we forget about the other part of the equation, which is the youth. We should give credit where credit is also due. The elders, or some congregation, they try. We've been part of the youth leaders at some point, where you organize trips and stuff. You copy certain things from other congregations or other denominations, and you can barely get even people to attend the youth.
Right.
It's free. They're not even paying for it. I know people from other different denominations where they pay all these dues, and when it comes down to for them to even go on a trip on certain things, they still have to pay out of pocket. But we do it for free, and you can barely get people sometimes to even come. You can cook free meal, and then people will still not show up. So I think we have two extremists. The youth is on the other side. The leaders or the older generation is on the other side. We are constantly pushing on the elders or the elderly to come closer to the youth, while the youth keep standing. Because when a youth is saying, you don't understand me, they assume you, they take it as support me in whatever I'm doing, regardless if it's right or wrong. So sometimes we also have to look at the whole equation in itself. As far as like topic, sermon and everything, if we're being honest, we will not satisfy everybody on every Sunday.
Right.
Like if we're talking about marriage, Kingsley is not married. Stephen is not married. So does that mean they're not going to benefit? I mean, they can equate it or relate it to something somehow.
They can learn it for the future. Though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think we have to look at bring everything on the table and not just make the assumption that, yes, they have a role to play, the elders and the preachers, but the youth also have a responsibility to play. Like, to even show up sometimes, it's hard. That's what I want to add. And I think with the last conversation we had on the podcast, I remember I brought it up that the parents, everybody, they have to be a full conversation, not just the elders going training, because you can train, get the skills, but if the people you're giving the skills to are not willing to take it, are not willing to implement it, it's useless. So we should bring everybody at the table.
Yeah,
I think that's
Kinsley, I want you to say something with regards to this topic, and then the next one will be, the next question for the preachers is, do you think Ghanaian cultural traditions are unnecessarily embedded into how church is done in the diaspora. Into Kingsley, you say what your piece, and then
Well, I think we've all of you have made some really fascinating points. But it seems to me the most foundational of all was where we started. Like the foundation is the Bible, and I think one of the main things is, which ties into what brother said before, is that there seems to be no theme to our messages from Sunday to Sunday to Sunday. And one of the things that I hope that we do encourage going forward is that there has to be a theme.
Right.
You can't come up there one Sunday talk about Lord's Supper, next Sunday you
Right.
talk about next Sunday talk. There has to be a theme to it, and because the theme brings unity. When we are all united on the message, over time we become united as a people.
Yeah.
And I think that because we don't have that is really something challenging. And so we start from the Bible, we derive the themes from the Bible, and we preach that, because you have to understand, Christianity started in a pluralistic society. It's not that different fundamentally. We can preach that. When Christianity was born, there were other religions there. There were so many different ideas. So I think we can relate that, and then tie it into our present day. So I think we've all, everybody's made phenomenal points. So I think it's all about tying it all together and finding a way forward.
I love that.
Okay, I have this thing to say. Okay, so I think for the team, over here at North Bros Church, preacher normally give us a team, but for this year, since last year, he's not well, so that's why it looks like Mr. Kumsin is teaching, Yeah. so for the team, almost every 6 months, preacher gives us a team. It's just that this year things are not really.
Yeah.
But all jokes aside, when it comes to teams and all of that, so your more team said, your team not say we need issue and what point to so we be able to preach and I'll be teaching. It's even easier for you.
Yes.
Because you know where to research.
Yes.
Rather than randomly you want to maybe this all my topics me researching and me preaching one is the easiest thing I can do.
Yep.
But so like I said, maintenance so okay she be ben and what do my yeah for then yeah if I don't know there I benefit. Let's emphasize on the theme and let's make sure say going forward maybe the leaders will hear, because there are so many topics at Church of Christ we can learn. There are a lot of people who view about Church of Christ more, but there's this particular topic and not this particular question. But based on the all these problems will be resolved. And that's the
I think like Stephen wanted to add something to it, and then we'll move to the cultural topic.
Yeah, I think what everybody's saying has some validity to it. Like, the leaders aren't listening to the youth aren't participating, but I haven't heard one person kind of mention that I believe the trust the youth has had in the church has been broken, in the diaspora specifically. And what do I mean by that? I haven't heard stories from either the elders or my parents or anybody significantly older than me saying that, like, oh, back in my day, our church used to split. Like, there was some type of disagreement or arguments within the leaders that caused some type of separation in the church. But it has happened a lot recently, especially in the diaspora. And I think that has done irreversible damage to the youth. Because I think back then when you guys were all together, you guys were all able to raise, you were able to be influenced by other youth. But now because there's some separation, you don't really talk to the people that you used to be close with anymore.
Sure.
And then it's become some type of clan, my church, this church, my church, so then we can't do things together. Because I also believe there are also special people within each congregation. And usually when those special people are able to pair up and do things together, they can really galvanize the youth and do all these great things. But because they've split, it's almost kind of like the devil's dividing and conquering in a way.
Yeah.
Separating what maybe 2 or 3 people could have done very, very powerful together in the congregation, the church as a whole. But now because of the separation, things have been lost and confused. So I think when we mention like the challenges the youth are facing, that is something that we should 100% bring up. It's the separation.
That's a good one. That's such a good thing. And
Before that, but preachers can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not just the. It's not just the black or Ghanaian.
Yeah.
Because where I worship right now, I think one point there was this, and it's mostly white people.
Yeah,
they were talking about the same issue about split.
Church split is
like,
not.
And
yeah.
They said it could be something like just that thing over there. Where do we put the water? And it will be on site every Sunday. And so it's just something, I don't know. Is it a Church of Christ thing? Or is it because you don't hear that with the denominations that much. They do split, but
they do. Even with the SDA church in the Bronx, there's a split. The Pentecost, there was a split. So I think it's a human thing. It's a human thing, and that's something that we probably can't do anything about. But we need to move away from that.
It's quite important because sometimes these splits are you wouldn't say it's not good in general.
It could be good. Yeah.
It could be because sometimes it borders on doctrine, and if one congregation accept drinking and we don't accept it, there should be a split. If there is something going on that can lead a lot of people to hell, split is good. But what if after splitting, is there any way we can do things to minimize those kind of hatred and that things that goes on? That's what we have to take a look at, because sometimes it leads to a whole lot of things that it's not quite pleasant.
Yeah. So I just want us to move away from that. Also, for part of the reason why I asked that cultural question is because as youth here, we face that challenge a lot. One of the things that we face here is crossing your legs in church. We know in an American culture, we go to school. It's something that is very normal thing to do, right? So when the youth come to this church and they're trying to cross their legs in this church, they're like kind of like demonized. They're like looked at, but in a white congregation, it is acceptable. So that's why I was bringing this thing up. Do you think some Ghanaian cultural traditions are unnecessarily embedded into how church is done in the diaspora?
Okay. I would say that culture is the way of the people, and it has a greater influence. Even sometimes culture influences us in Bible interpretation.
Sure.
Some people just interpret the Bible based on their culture, not universal.
Yeah.
But the Bible was written for universal purpose. It should fit into all cultures, not one particular culture.
Yeah.
Let me share one funny thing about crossing your legs. Today, when I was sitting in front of your dad, I was crossing my leg, and I remember, it's not because I don't care. Then I removed my leg. Because in Ghanaian culture, you don't sit in front of an elderly person and cross your legs.
Sure.
But what about the diaspora? These are some of the challenges we are discussing here today.
Exactly.
That the youth have. So culture, especially, sometimes someone may say trust, because the youth are no more trusting. At the end, why are they not trusting? It's boiled down to research work. Why are they not trusting?
Yeah.
Why have we organized a program? They are not even paying anything. They are not coming.
Yeah.
Do we find solution? Why are they not coming?
Yeah.
That is the point. So culture has an influence. But one thing that I want us to take notice, culture works best at where it is originated. That is what we should take note. At where it is originated. So you are on the land of America. Should we bring all our culture from Ghana? Where my children are going to American school, is the curriculum is designed by the Americans based on their culture. And you are going to just based on just Wednesday Bible class.
We used to say that they don't have any culture.
They have. Americans have a culture. Their way of life. Americans have a culture. And they dominate.
Yeah.
So if you are going to start a Ghanaian congregation and you think, let me use that word, you think you can throw away the American culture, then first of all, don't allow your children to go to American school.
Sure.
Most of you speaking here on this discussion, most of you are using American slangs. You understand?
Of course.
That is not how Ghanaians talk.
Of course.
The way we speak English. So I will say that we cannot throw our culture, but we should blend them. We should blend both cultures in the church and outside the church. But if it will work best, we should start from the home. The youth are leaving the church because in our homes we are not blending the culture. We are forcing the youth to accept a culture from a different land. We want them to remember that they are Ghanaians, but it takes time. But our parents are forcing. You know, when you made a point, and I wrote it here, that even in diaspora, some of the leaders are leading with Ghanaian culture, which is affecting the youth. What am I saying that? In Ghana, take it as an elderly person have said it.
No question.
Let me give you one funny thing again. When I came here to teach, one day I went to class and somebody said, Richard, come. Come and help me with this mathematics. I said, what? He said, Richard, come. Won't you come? I was looking at this guy. I said, oh, Richard, not even with Mr. Osei. No respect for me.
I said, I don't.
So this is where our young ones are going to school. They are mingled with them. Peer pressure is there. So when they come to the church, and we think, in Ghana, when your father says something, you don't need to question. You don't need to. That is not the environment where our children are. So this is what I support of being with. This is the time. Some of you may be saying we are saying leaders. Yes, that is what even the Bible says. That if the devil wants to attack any organization, it starts from the head. So that is what we are saying, that this is the time we are in a different culture. We are training our children in a different culture. We should not solely center our training on the Ghanaian culture, both in the church. And we should also train our parents who are nurturing our children here to understand that they should blend both cultures. Which one is more important? Okay, this is the way Americans dress. This is the way a Ghanaian dress. Which goes with the Bible? And which one should I train you with? But there are some parents here who lack the basic knowledge about how to train your children in the diaspora. Is the church working on these things to train the parents? All these things must be taken into consideration. And when you study the whole Bible totality, the Bible was written to solve problems. I keep saying that.
That's true.
Paul wrote 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians because he knew the problems of the people. And he wrote the Bible to solve those problems.
Problems there.
But nowadays, we preach without using it to solve problems in the church. We make it universal as if everybody's like that. No. So what problem is going on? Like the culture. Maybe our young ones are not used to the Ghanaian culture. What must we do? Church leaders, we sit down. Okay, what topics should we teach? For them to value both cultures and see what is best for them.
Yes.
We cannot go one side. So influencing those in diaspora with your culture back home, it will create a lot of problems in the church. We should blend both. And we should allow them to also take a decision in our decision making. Ghana culture is not like that. It's about mother, father. If you like it or not, take it.
As it is.
As it is. One day I was teaching and and one of my students said, Sir Richard, this mathematics, why am I learning this mathematics? What benefit am I going to get from it? And I forgot that I'm in a different land. I said, take it. Whether you like it, I don't have any reason for you to learn this mathematics. You know, I was speaking from Ghanaian background. When the teacher says something, whether you understand it or not, you can ask questions. But for me to give you in-depth knowledge, but that is the culture we are here. 1 year old child can, why are you doing this? They will be asking you questions upon questions upon questions. So when you ask me about culture, we should blend our culture for our children to know where they are and the culture their ancestors came from. The same thing in the church. And when we do that, the members themselves can take the one that goes in line with the Bible. There may be a culture here that goes best in line with the Bible than the culture from Ghana.
Of course.
So we should not solely center on one culture. Mentality.
Isn't that the whole goal, to have a Ghanaian congregation to preserve the
Ghanaian culture?
Yeah.
I was saying, I wrote something. Let me share something with you.
No, like, yeah, so that we couldn't go to any church. Why build a Ghanaian congregation just so you can worship and do things in your own culture? I thought the goal was also to preserve the culture while you serve the Lord.
Okay, if you want to preserve the culture, then this is one of the things I used to say. If Ghanaian congregations was solely to preserve Ghanaian culture, then we have failed. There should be no English in our worship. And we should be truthful to ourselves. How many of us, our children here, if we speak only Tree, don't you think we are going to worsen the challenges we are discussing today? Most of them will not come to church.
And then your podcast, you can give me
And when you change,
because a lot of your youth will not benefit from it.
Yeah,
the tree.
the tree. Oh, and when you want to change one, I don't know the writer who said it. If you want to take somebody's culture away from him,
No, change his language.
change his language and his name.
That's it.
So are we not
Nelson
contributing to
Mandela.
changing our own culture?
You can't. On somebody's land, you can't. That's why I said, if you want to do it solely in a Ghanaian way, then you should use the Ghanaian language. Our way of dressing. When we come to church, we should dress as a Ghanaian.
Those suits.
Our ladies cannot wear trousers to this building.
Yeah.
It is not a Ghanaian culture. It's not a Ghanaian. When it is even the weather is so cold, they should wear something like a Ghanaian culture. You see, that is why I said, I wrote something, maybe I didn't say it in a way. I said that putting a square shape in a circle hole, in a circle, it will never fail. You cannot bring your culture, everything on this line. Because our education system here is training them based on American culture. And that is what. Look at the language you are speaking. You are not speaking a Ghanaian language. You are accent. So our leaders must understand, we love them, but they must understand they are on a different line. So they should study the culture, and they should also study the culture back home. And understand the young ones, and see which one will fit into their world in line with the Bible.
That's it.
Let me say something. Yeah, with regards to this, I think the parent also needs to be trained because you see, we are here, and the way the kids or these people think, they think American, they're Americanized, right?
Oh yes.
So there was just this week, I was speaking to one of these young people, and she was so upset simply because she did something. Apparently, she feels it's not wrong, but the mother spoke to her in a harsh way, and she feels the mother is wrong, and the mother has to apologize to her. I'm like, it's true your mom is wrong, but where she's coming from,
that is it.
She'll never apologize. She'll just make it like that. So, like, the parents too need to blend. So, you are here. You need to understand. So sometimes you might go wrong. You not always be right. So sometimes you learn to, I'm sorry, man, can't hear you. Then we move forward. But parents.
Let me add it.
Wouldn't it be fair also for the kids to also understand where their parents are coming from?
But you are lecturing them on a different line. Let me add this to what he said. It is hardly for me to sometimes buy games for my children because I thought it will influence their learning. So when I came here, I wanted my son to be like in Ghana society, the first, second, third, fourth. You don't need to go, but here they have like principal list, honoring list. So I wanted my son to be that part. So what I said is, if you get to this part, I'll buy you Nintendo Switch. I never knew anything about Nintendo Switch. No. I promised him about PS5.
Oh, PS5.
I went to Amazon, checked the price. I said, what did you say even I don't know what is it for. But my child was saying, okay, if I get there, will you buy me PS5? I said, oh, don't worry. Get there, I'll buy you. And so, fortunately, he's there. I checked the price from Amazon. It was around 600 to 700. I said, what? So what did I do? I said, okay, what about Nintendo Switch? And he said, Nintendo Switch. and I bought. What I'm trying to support these guys, back in Ghana, my child will get a place to go and play football. But at where I'm living now, there's no place to socialize.
Yeah.
Everything is about computer.
Yeah.
Everything about the system in the house, gaming and other things. So now, I don't know anything about Nintendo Switch, but I have learned how to play, download games, control B, This is the environment where I am. But how many parents will be able to adjust themselves to where they are training their children? And that is what I'm saying. The church must also know, yes, we are building a Ghanaian culture in our congregations, because when you worship in your own language, you feel very good. But we are on different places.
All right. I think we
need to
spend our time to call.
Okay, we'll wait for Akate. Preacher, I know that. I mean, you were saying elders.
Yeah.
Okay. But most of these teachings are coming from you there.
Preachers.
Culture. I don't have any issue with whoever want to practice their own. The problem I have is, see, when we come to church, right?
Yeah. What does the Bible say about that?
What the Bible says about that?
Yeah.
If a white person can come here
And
greet you, or use his left hand and put offering, I mean give offering,
or take the.
it's okay. If a white man comes here and
Cross the leg.
it's okay.
It's normal.
It's okay.
Okay.
But when
Ghanaian
a
child.
Ghanaian
It's sin.
is doing that, then it becomes a sin because our culture. You see, these are some of the things that
It is very
mesmerize people.
Yeah.
So this is what I see. Sometimes when I'm teaching things like this is what I see. That the Bible says that we should do everything not to be an obstacle or not to tempt anybody.
Yeah.
I see, the idea who didn't have 2 years until they are quitting. A very preku na be a minimum. And your body, but me fear from your preku. No, but when no would you make him you someone. So this is what I presented. Okay. Me come and to sona Ghana society. You who say me more dear. Should I keep doing it? Should I keep doing it? No. Why? And yet, me have the Bible quotation myself. Cross your leg. But said the men to me Ghanaian society. No. Men, they will see you from different backgrounds. Why don't I even stop? Because I can greet with my letter. My member example, about America. Once a Ghana, Ubi who no one chiawa.
No, both.
No, both what you saw no was but America will pass about one child. But when you say, no, come. Are you born in the society you are living? It's not me make us say. I tell you, preachers, your presentation, you be a doctrine. I want to hear him. No, your man didn't be a doctrine. I say, "Who say we come chiawa come in send you?" But at what point then I was standing? Now my true be able to say, "Bonkum na wo de chia." Yeah, your culture. In the Ghana culture, we say they won't choose into the Nyan Kasa Umwadi intino. Why don't I do what the society I am presenting to accept? But we can say, "Yeah, Okrosolega, Okomunzemjima." You to be Huna British say, even a big Church of Christ, so for power being across the leg. What didn't man go?
Right.
It didn't make us say we should present both cultures. Many are only Ghana for share and count 9 to so. Because and chill. Ebia only Ghana initiate, obey leader, or your dreadlocks are. You won't say read, Usubanye. But no be I dreadlocks behind your tessa, but it's society no. It will a bony need to be a demand. What about foreign culture and Ayaba? Now my try against you say, won't free baby say, yeah, the Bible in there to tell. Say the only way Janu and Masintino, can you born you? In terms of your dreadlocks, and can you born but beer, Sintidria. And he said, you didn't have a car found. Yeah, there's a beer, my baha, Naka may buy my tram dreadlocks. Now, my baby pretty. And then the Nipa of two Sintidria with their hand. Now, what if and that is how we should present. It is sometimes we have a program of presentation. Yeah, my idea, anybody decided. Because Mekai said, no, Bruni be back Ghana, not me be mission work. I say Richard, can kanyema me ya mo culture no see me is see even say mwadi and I say e mo enyi mintum. Na kan say ba connect cross leg. I say no for pepper. I'm so cross leg and to yam fa yen say bonkum and chia.
And say bonkum kasa check ni.
Na me ba yi me yes bakani me chira de manyi chankura. Hey Richard, come. One from say ground also. Come and sit here. Say Richard, no the F word na mama. We are getting buffer, market catch Ghana. We did my man, my child, who said they will talk over generate. But how would in some catch it? Now I could tell about society with. No, I can't do this here. It is a sad because I didn't know about down with studies. It's your Bible, she said here present lessons here. Young people, they are crying. I can't even Ghana culture and foreign culture. How do you balance the two? It was sharing in Ghana for this how I should talk. But me shamro for no so idea when I'm here. But Bible mean the problem no. One present now be the forcer. Now crano any do stage bia one tun so atua.
Yeah, who said this is the issue.
This is the issue. I better one person will show respect to you. These are some of the things that nowadays the young ones that here but message say we should do more research. And every presentation any biblical say where you're wrong, where you say
black and white,
very good. You're presenting it in a way acceptable. Don't say, oh, this is what is acceptable in that society. Now admire your well balanced. I just say
my presentation. It seems that there is a learning has really taken place, right?
Yeah.
And then I think that moving forward, you guys are the leaders of the church, right? So I hope to come back one day and see that when you get there. Moving forward, that's what I want to come back. When you present a child of age 1 who has no language in a society that is a multilingual, how long does it take the child to speak?
Especially when there are no kids around, it takes a while.
Even if there are kids around and they are multilingual.
It takes long.
It's confusing.
That is.
Have you seen it takes that long for the child to identify himself or herself with one particular language?
Yeah.
That is what we are facing right
the
now.
youth,
They are going through right now. Cultural crisis. Cultural identification crisis, and then how to blend the faith that they have with their culture, and then assimilate whatever the information that they are getting, and able to understand what is going on around them. Indeed, it is what the youth are facing right now. So what I want to say is that First Corinthians chapter number First Corinthians I think is 6:12, right? And it reads that all things are lawful for me, right? But not all things are helpful. It means that there are some things that are lawful and helpful. So whenever you are presenting a message, or whatever that we are presenting to the youth, or even the youth, let me add this before I proceed. We should be able to go to the leaders, ask the questions. We should also identify ourselves with something better in the church. Sometimes we, as you said, we keep on blaming the leaders and blaming them. But one thing is that, have we ever also identified ourselves with something that we think is very lawful and then helpful as youth? What are we also doing? We also have a take. We also have something we are supposed to do. We also have to work on our own salvation, right? Because one day these leaders will not be there, and we will be occupying these positions. So what are we going to also give to the next generation? Let me tell you something. God is not going to punish you if you're He's going to punish you. Let me give you this. God is going to punish you even if your grandson goes wrong. You have an answer to give to God. I'm telling you.
You need to maintain the faith in all your generation.
At least your third generation, I think that's where you are supposed to work towards. And you have been said because we are here.
And then we can't go.
No. You must make sure that what we are saying. Yes. So please, I know it is difficult as a youth in diaspora that what we are going through, because as I see the example that this a lot is going on. But one thing is that we should also identify ourselves with something. We should be able to identify ourselves with something. That is helpful, and that is going to help the leaders also work with us. Because we cannot keep on blaming the leaders. Yes, they have a part to play. Yes, we understand you need to do something. Right. But what do you want? What do you want them to help you with? What
are your challenges? What are your issues?
What do you want? So sometimes you can come together as you present your issue to the leaders, the leadership, and then let them sit down with you and then have discussion about that. And I think with this culture issue, all that I'll say is that please, we must take the one that is decent.
That is all.
The decent one. The one that is decent. With dressing, language, whatever, they're decent. Because that's what the Bible says. Decent. And that is what I will say. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Penny.
We are kind of last.
Penny, right. We say, Penny Ekasa, Nancy, Enwa. Now, from the beginning, I told you, said me representing Penny for but Jam Penny for Akano. You see, Fred Ekan also for two Dinak or Benso Akan, we are used to Akan. Youth, we will keep on asking questions.
Good.
What I say, we will keep on asking. Sometimes, answer na ye peno, yenya. Oh, yenya answer no. And yet to say, make any say answer na nanka wo open. And yeah, no. And na ubenya. Say the Bible na eye jumadia.
Oh yeah.
What I say. And as much as Bible aka, now we know Proverbs chapter 22. There should be a training. Ephesians chapter 6. There should be obedience. To be training, and so be obey. And as we are youth, our parents, our teachers, leaders will teach. They have to train us. We the youth, we have to listen. Me time, me kasa, sofo kasa puni, yankebi. Whether a answer na upe na answer umpe, you have to obey. Obey before you do. Sir, me tell, ade ma go to asana me te hanu a, me ankasa minyi ye ma betinya me so matia. Time na minyi na ya enya tete na me pe, enya answers a me pe from my parents. But minyi ye no, ma be hu say they were doing me good. And youth society na ye woman our parents so we are tough on us. Unjai yenya. So when they are training us, we should obey. Sometimes answers now from the Bible. No, youth need better, but we have to swallow. I know they're better. I
get what you're saying, but you see, where we find ourselves, it's not just about you saying it.
That's it.
Now, or you swallow it. No, you should give him a reason why.
Very good. That's where I started from.
Yeah. So you need to. You don't just tell me do this. You should explain things to me.
When you come to,
I get what you're saying.
We explain with the Bible the reason why we don't do ABC, the reason why we do CDB. It's just that sometimes it is hard. We should understand. Senior, church, when our parents 5-7 days, what did 3 hours and about baby Sunday pet if you can't person on Baba. Youth need the abwes to have engaged them. Diana Ufi said, we want you to start doing something. I said, oh bro, give me some time. Maybe boys for 3 years and still
give me some time.
Or every time you are by me say, me start from here. I'm not ready. Yes. But right now, we are youth. Ati ase o. Ha enti yenso yembo yemoso. Ebe kwa.
podcast.
Yeah.
That was it. I wish I would.